heard of it.
Yeah, on April.
Good evening, boss.
First time I've seen him without his
Dennis told me he's not gonna be here.
They did have a class singer for his game. Nobody else said that.
It is Crystal. It says it on there. Something Crystal.
That's banging out on the table.
It'll be alright.
Nancy, you get to play workers' comp for councilman?
Wait, you got her.
They're like crystal gavel.
Compliments of TSA.
I wanna know that big story. What was it presiding over?
Somebody broke down and tried to get him on a plane. I got seized by TSA O'Hare. Trying to get on the crazy TSA O'Hare.
Really? You have to go out there and get it?
They bring it to Springfield, and that's where they separate everything. I thought I could go
So they wouldn't let us through on a airplane?
there. No, because somebody had it in their carry-on, and you could beat somebody to death with it, probably.
Is that solid?
I'll do the same
That's
damage,
solid.
do the same damage with a cowboy boot.
I know, exactly. Dude, it's so weird. It's-
I got my Bath and Body Works confiscated once. I felt like a criminal.
Oh my God. So,
So what kind of eggs did you end up making?
Davies winning 34-0. Beating the crap out of everyone. They beat, their varsity team beat the crap out of us, and then our JV team, we're undefeated. No, I'm getting.
Yeah, when you want to do this. It's noodle.
So it's watered down. Close more?
Nikki, you put a big ribbon on it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Build your own.
Eric's busy moving house.
So,
Hi, Carrie.
protein wise, they have tofu, two types of chicken and
I said that.
Oh, I got you. I was eating protein, steak, shrimp, scallops, beef
It's so aggravating when
Yeah.
you use I'm using a house
You
that
guys have like,
is actually got zero choking. And the people I'm shooting against also have had a full short.
yeah, you have like, taste, like a farm, like, you know what foods you can eat with it, like teriyaki, chili, they all. And there's a big old ladle.
She does that presentation. Thank you.
I know.
15 people came in. One day, the other time, one day we had 27 and 4 times.
How did you still drive?
They lost it, so it's on the ocean, right on the sideline.
I'll let that slide.
Yeah, about all the same time.
That's a stroke 2.0 out there. Yeah, my sister told me about it. So that's why I was gonna let this slide.
That's like literally sticks, but like a little line.
Yes, she was so cute. She was so cute. They live on a straight shot and it goes like downhill. It's almost like it feels country.
Right, now, wait a minute. I would visit.
Megan was there, Charles didn't know her, she got her. Like, you know, like when the storm sewers were fire.
At least you got the capability of getting it.
$21,000. Ticket price was like,
Well,
yeah, my new one.
yeah.
So I just started looking at that auto body shop, it's such a good job, they had it 2 years too.
Valerie, you buy it.
Mhm. You mean, the one I recommended? Right.
You don't remember this one? She said, oh, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, no.
It's supposed to be soft. I haven't seen one yet.
I think she said she'll help me with that.
Yeah, she's gonna have.
But the one she made herself is nice. It's really well found.
Let me know Friday.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. That,
What made you say she was, you know, usually ask for pep. You can see that man says,
oh, yeah, I can tell. It is.
so I started cleaning up the dining room for the meeting hall. Stepped onto the coolers. I really was planning on it, so almost forgot.
So, when are they supposed to?
Couldn't be better.
Could be better.
Couldn't be better. Maybe I could have.
So you're okay. School week.
Groovy, yeah. Groovy. Like, what decade are we going in? Huh?
No.
Junkie?
I went up there in May or June. They had
A little bit of both. I'm a groovy girl.
Got. Shoot, gotta be got.
It's fun and junkie.
Yeah.
I don't do that. Oh, yeah.
Welcome. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not. Good evening. Welcome to the Community Development Committee meetings. We meet on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. I'm Jessica Lotz, and I'm your representative from Ward 2. Leading us tonight, we have several members of our city staff. We have our acting city administrator, Grant Lidekin, and we have our director of community development, Greg Anderson. Looking over the agenda, it looks like we have 4 items that we'll vote on. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll receive some updates on different projects happening throughout the city. These are projects that have already been approved, but that we're getting sort of status updates on where those are at. Any votes taken tonight are advisory only. Regardless of a vote, all items do proceed to the full city council. And anyone wishing to make comments will have several opportunities to do so. After each item is presented, I'll ask the committee, and then the council, and then the public if they have any comments they'd like to make. There's also an opportunity at the end for public comments, and those can be about items on the agenda or not. Public comments are welcomed, and anyone speaking has 5 minutes to tell us whatever they'd like. Please state your name, and if you're a resident, please address comments to the council and not to individual staff members or members of the council or public. And our goal is to answer questions that are asked, but even though we have very knowledgeable staff, sometimes questions are asked that require more research than we have in front of us tonight, so we'll try to work to get answers to that. So with that, we will start with a roll call. Greg?
Lotz.
Here.
Roach. Rosenberg.
Present.
Parchman. Mylart. Campbell.
All right, we have not enough people for a quorum, so we will not be taking votes, but we will be still discussing everything on the agenda. So we have the minutes, but we will not be voting on those. So we will move ahead to item 2.1, which is a restaurant requesting to allow the use of alcohol for on-site consumption. When a business doesn't currently serve alcohol and they want to, this has to go through a process called planned use, and that process started on September 23rd when the Planning Commission heard the project, and they ultimately voted 9-0 to recommend approval of the application, and Greg has those details for us.
If I may, Ms. Chair.
Sure.
Real quick to explain the lack of quorum. So there are 6 members that sit on this committee. Since there are only 3 of them today, that does not constitute a quorum because it is not a majority of the group of members. So if there was a 4th person that would walk in or begin this meeting, we would have a quorum and then we would take vote. So as mentioned, lack of a quorum means there are no decisions to be made, only discussions. And so the minutes will reflect in the next council meeting that there was no quorum and no vote taken.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a request for a PUD to amend the PUD for Zap Thai to obtain a liquor license for on-site consumption. They are located at 106 and 107 West Highway 50, and they have been in business for 10 years. The current zoning for this property is B1P Planned Community Business District. The original planned use was passed in 2001, 2002, and this was when the building was being constructed. The only proposed amendment to the planned use is to allow for Zap Thai to obtain a liquor license for on-site consumption, and there are no other changes proposed at this time. Looking at the zoning for the property, it is zone B1P. Most properties adjacent and across the street on West Highway 50 are also zone B1P and B1 community business. Looking at the future land use map, the property is designated as regional commercial. This business is suitable for regional commercial. And taking a look at conformity with the city ordinances and the zoning code, this would promote the stabilization and expansion of the existing economic base, not only for Zap Thai, but it would also provide additional tax revenue to the city. And in terms of conformity with our zoning ordinance, there's no exterior or lot coverage changes proposed for the project, therefore bulk area regulations are not applicable. And the proposed addition of liquor to the existing business will not have a significant impact on traffic, nor will it negatively affect adjacent properties. And city staff's recommendation is to approve the planned use approval allowing for on-site consumption for a liquor license with compliance of the city and state regulations. Thank you.
All righty, pretty cut and dry. This is normally where I would ask for a motion and a second, but we don't have quorum, so I will instead ask, does anybody on the committee have questions for the staff about the proposed application? Anybody on council? Anybody from the public? Nope. All right. Well, that will move ahead to full council next week.
You are
Don't
correct.
you like how sure of myself I am? All righty. Next we have items 2.2 and 2.3. These are not items that we generally see very often in front of the council. These are called text amendments, and they are seeking to expand or clarify parts of our zoning code. So we have two of them tonight. The first one is item 2.1. Staff is recommending we consider amending our code to address large-scale solar farms. I do want to state that the state of Illinois gives counties permitting permission. And according to St. Clair County Chairman Mark Kern, the counties are required to approve them. So he posted that on his Facebook back in September. Local municipalities can adopt zoning regulations to ensure consistency and clarity. So that's what staff is seeking with this proposed zoning text amendment. So I'll ask Greg to cover that now.
Thank you. This is a text amendment proposing to change section 157 of the Code of Ordinances, and essentially this would create a new zoning classification for community large-scale solar farms. Before we get into the proposed text, I want to give a background, or a brief introduction and background information on the State of Illinois' Public Act, which is Public Act 102-1123, which was signed effective January 27th, 2023. This does establish uniform standards for the development and construction of both commercial wind and solar energy farms. The Public Act allows counties to regulate the siting of commercial wind and solar energy facilities with standards that are not more restrictive than those in the Act. So the Public Act does provide standards for setbacks, height, screening, just like our zoning code does, but it specifically outlines that counties have the jurisdiction to permit solar farms. These standards apply to unincorporated areas outside of the city's municipal zoning jurisdiction, and that does include the 1.5-mile extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction which surrounds the city's corporate limits. So these would be the properties that are not necessarily annexed into the city right now, but they are on our future land use map in our Master Plan 2040 that does designate what the proper zoning would be for these properties if they were annexed in the future. And like I said, that act by the state does permit counties, municipalities to adopt regulations, but they cannot be more restrictive than the regulations that the state passed. Additional background, the proposed large-scale solar farms are becoming increasingly common within St. Clair County. Just in the last few months, we've had several petitioners approach the city with proposals within the 1.5-mile planning jurisdiction. So what that process looks like, first the developers for solar farms would go to St. Clair County. They would pull an application, they go through a public hearing process. The county does ask that developers check with the city and with the township to make sure that there are no permitting requirements. We currently do not have any with the city. However, the township does have a special use permit, so when there is a solar farm, they do go through a public hearing with O'Fallon Township to obtain a special use permit, which we are asking for the city as well. As you can see with some of these parcel ID numbers, these proposed solar farms are very large scale, some of them over 100 acres. And these are in land that on the future land use map are either classified as future low-density residential, which would be appropriate for residential homes and subdivisions, or future business. And so many of these properties are located on those designations, and we would like to amend the code so that the city has some say in what we permit within our jurisdiction. With that said, we're recommending the establishment of a new zoning classification, which would be I-2, Industrial Solar Farm District, which does comply with the Public Act from the state. If this does move forward through City Council approval, the current zoning map would stay the same. So we do currently have an I industrial district zoning classification. That would become I1 industrial zoning, and the only thing that would be changed for all properties that are currently zoned industrial is just the change in title from I to I1. There's no other proposed amendments to the existing industrial district. However, the text amendment would require the following in I-2 industrial solar farms. So if a developer does go to the county, then goes to the township, they would then come to the city, and we would request that they sign or require them to sign a pre-annexation agreement or an annexation agreement if the property is contiguous with the city. We would require them to pay an annexation fee of $9,000 per acre. And the formula for this is low-density residential properties in the future land use map have a maximum density of 4 units per acre, and the annexation fee total is $22.50 per unit. So if those properties were to be developed into low-density residential subdivisions in the future, the city would collect $9,000 in annexation fees. So we're essentially making the formula and the justification on what the property would become if it were to be annexed and developed into residential. So that'd be $22.50 times a maximum of 4 units per acre, so that would be $9,000 per acre. And we're also including setback and buffering requirements in alignment with Public Act 102, 1123, which are the most restrictive requirements listed in that Public Act. We do have a bulk regulation matrix in our code, and if this does pass, the amended ordinance would add an additional I-2 industrial solar farm district in our area and bulk regulations. All of these, including the minimum lot area, minimum lot width, mean lot depth, depth of the front yard, side yard, rear yard, all of these are in alignment with the Public Act. So we are being as restrictive as we possibly can be, and we are looking to adopt all of those height restrictions, setbacks, and coverage that is included in the Public Act from the state. I would also like to note that when I-2 industrial solar farm districts abut a residential zoning district, we are looking to require a 30-foot setback with an 8-foot tall landscape buffer, which is also required by the state and by the county. So that would cover the I industrial district, the I-2 industrial district, the area and bulk regulations, and then lastly, there would be a section of code that would define industrial solar farms and what is actually permitted in there. There would be no permitted principal structures or principal uses. There would be accessory uses permitted in in the B2 zoning district, which is standard for industrial districts. We would also require solar farm developers to go through the special use process just like the county and the township would do. So that would require a public hearing, and we would want to consider the community's expectations and feedback. So that's why we would like them to go through the special use permit so that it is a public process. We would also require an annexation fee of $9,000 per acre, and all developments within the I-2 district shall be subject to the city's development control ordinance and shall require an annexation agreement as a condition of approval. This was seen on September 23rd by the Planning Commission, and they did recommend approval of the proposed text amendment by a vote of 9-0. There was a recommendation made with an additional condition to apply parkland dedication fees as well in compliance with existing city code. City code already exists and defines specifically what parkland dedication fees should be collected for, and the city code specifically states that these apply to new residential lots and units, and when a building permit is built or pulled, there is a density formula based on the number of residents that would be living in those houses to determine applicable fees, and that's based on the new residents within the subdivision. Therefore, city staff does not believe that it is applicable to apply parkland dedication fees to new solar farms coming into the city. So with that said, I'll take any questions, but ultimately staff does recommend approval of the zoning text amendment. Thank you.
All righty. Lots of information for that. Again, we would normally ask for a motion in a second, but we don't have a quorum, so instead I will ask the committee what questions they might have. Yes, Ross?
So, I'm just like lost with a few of my thoughts, and I don't know if they're legally possible or if they're questions or statements or what, but anyhow, I'm gonna throw it out there. I've done a lot of reading because I really don't follow solar and wind and all that. A lot of what I read is when these panels, whether they're on homes or they're solar farms, come to end of life. Is there a way that we can is there a means where we can, somebody who builds these solar farms, I don't know, the property owner or the farm owner or whoever, if we can have some kind of set aside where when they do, they have to put in escrow or something, a certain amount of money, because we know that these panels go bad after X number of years. And if they bail or something, then that's gonna end up being on us may end up being on us. Is there a way to set aside that money or require them to have that money set aside where it's not on us to have to put this back to land?
Absolutely. So that is essentially why we came up with the formula to impose a $9,000 per acre fee. That is a common problem that we heard from neighboring counties who are currently experiencing this, is that whenever solar panel farms are decommissioned or they are to be uninstalled, many times they sit there and they become a nuisance for the municipality, and eventually it would come to the code enforcement department. And so a thought process of requiring $9,000 per acre is that money or that funding would be available in the future if it does become the responsibility of the city to decommission or address those and mitigate the issues that they would have.
I didn't see that anywhere in there. That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
One of the things that came to mind was, does the FAA get a shot at approving these projects because of proximity to the airfields?
Yes, so there's a common practice that we follow, and we have for a number of years. Anything built near the flyover area goes through a cursory review from the Air Force Base. The base planner and our departments are in contact often. And this goes for solar fields, it goes for anything that's built at or near the Air Force Base.
Good questions. Any other? Not at this time. Council members. Mr. Carney.
Is there any environmental issues with the solar panels?
Environmental, how so?
As these get older, deteriorate, I know that wiring is in the ground, the structures are out there. I want to know if that affects the environment in any way, the ground that it's been put on.
I mean, I think that's pretty similar to the question asked previously about, mitigation costs. As far as the materials used in them, we don't necessarily get involved in the construction types or pollutants, if that's what you're kind of asking about. I'm not familiar enough with the chemistry of solar panels. Is that what your question was?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then real quick, I drove by one today and I saw it was completely fenced in. Where does the fencing, is that a local thing, a state thing for safety?
It would be part of our bulk requirements for them to do some sort of screening or landscape buffer, depending on what type of property it abuts, but we would.
Okay, but it would be a buffer or complete, because this one was completely fenced in.
That would ultimately, as they go through the special use permit, that is a condition that could be placed upon that, and that would be something we would handle each one differently on a case-by-case basis, but that would be part of the discussion as they do come through and request a special use permit for that.
Because I'm thinking about this, like the one where I saw today is more, it's close to a neighborhood. So obviously I think the fencing is important in those situations. A lot of these places that they're looking at it, are undeveloped, but depending on how things go and are developed and if they're still around, would they be made to put a fence in later, or should we just do it off the bat?
Yeah, it's a good question. Mind you, our development code usually requires a 6-foot vinyl fence. That's a very large fence. But one of the reason why we're putting this in place is because there's no regulations or anything. Somebody can find 50 acres right next to a subdivision and build it. We'd have no setback requirements or anything. And so the secondary objective behind this is to combine it with the future land use map. So if the future land use map has low density residential on the sides of town, that would be not a natural fit for the zoning classification that falls under industrial. So as we look through our overall land use map, a lot of these would be kind of chosen on areas of lower impact or the residential properties around them.
Okay, so because the one I saw was chain link, so because of our code already, that would already not be allowed.
There is chain link allowed in industrial zoning, yes.
Okay, so that would be the fencing that would be,
Correct.
Approved, okay.
Yep.
Sure, go ahead, Ross.
But I think when we talk about it, we could always put that as a requirement that they do vinyl. Jeff, and I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but is there any concern with water runoff with the big solar farm, or do they do like a concrete base and then, do we have any concerns there?
I mean, they'd still have to follow any of our stormwater runoff requirements. I think this is a way to make them adhere to those at the same time.
Thanks.
I would say if the council feels strongly about a provision of a fencing, now would be the time to provide that feedback. I mean, we would follow our development code, which would require fencing, but if there's something above and beyond that you guys would wish to apply to this I-2 zoning, you know, if that's a thought, staff could work on that before next week.
I think it should be fenced as part of the, I mean, not only for people safety, but, you know, if there's an accident or rollover accident, animals, you know, a lot of these spaces are more natural and like woodland is close by, so I just think it should be fenced in off the jump, so.
More of a privacy fence rather than a chain link fence is what I was thinking of.
I think,
Yeah, so like a vinyl fence, just, I mean, I'm just,
Along that line.
just would be very, very costly. If that's
right,
what
and
the
I think
council
if there's
wants.
a site, if something's going on there, you can see it through the chain link, you know, if there's a small fire that starts or something, you know, something like it's more visibility to the structure. I mean, to put it all, I'm more worried about safety than the look, so I think I'd be okay with the chain link, but.
I would favor having it in the ordinance, and if they want to request a variance at some point, then they, from my standpoint, I would be in favor of the vinyl fencing being part of it. I know it would be expensive. I get it.
Alderman Vorse.
The space between the panels underneath them and stuff like that is normally natural grass and can grow quite long in some places that I've seen. We also have a stipulation in there that it has to be mowed and maintained.
It would be, it would apply to all the codes. It would apply the same codes as any other commercial property, so. Yep, it would be code enforcement issues, certainly.
Meaning the way you're recommending it structured already
That is
takes that into
accurate,
account?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, all our existing codes and provisions would apply also to this new zoning classification as they do on any other property in town.
Okay. Good question. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Yes.
Ron Zelms, Ward 6. Could you put the slide up that shows the potential was like 4 developments within the mile and a half of Wolf Island? Yeah, that one right there. That's a lot of acreage. Is there any provision at the county or state level of how they do an equalized assessed value on that? What I'm thinking about is 4 homes at $400,000 and $500,000 a piece on 1 acre of land, what that generates property tax value-wise versus a solar panel. I can't believe it'd be as much as what a residential development would be, but I would hope that if any of these are that close to the city, that they would really look long and hard of, do you really want to develop that much acreage for solar? Or is it really better developed for residential from a property tax standpoint? Thanks.
Good question. I'm unaware of how they are assessed once they're put in.
Well, that's the conundrum that we're under. I mean, solar farms of this nature have not been around for 60 or 70 years, so we don't know how they look when they're decommissioned. We typically, when codes are written by cities, it's because there's a problem and somebody got away with it. Now we're trying to be proactive and fix it before the problem happens. I know particularly I was reached out to by the county and the township just late last week, and there's an additional solar farm going through that petition portion. I believe it's 16 acres near Scott Troy Road. I did reach out to our attorney and asked, is this something we can get involved in? He said, no, not until this ordinance passes for our standpoint. But Terry Bruckert and Todd Fleming were both involved in creating this ordinance. It's actually, there's quite a few cities now that are seeing this and adopting it with us.
Any other questions from the public? Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry, Greg wrote the ordinance.
Oh, you wrote the
Yeah.
Verma Ware, Ward 3. This $9,000, so that's in terms I would consider. So that's like a mobilization fee for them to come in there?
No, sir.
Okay, so if they're coming into this ground and mobilizing, then you could also consider a demobilization factor when they move out to return it to existing. Is that a scenario you could maybe look at?
Again, so as we mentioned, these are kind of new to the area, so what we have seen is that when they're decommissioned, it's very hard to get anybody that will claim ownership and fix them. That is why,
Well, that's where you hit them up with another $9,000.
yes, we will hold that in escrow or as a fund so that if the city needed to.
No, I mean, like, you got $9,000 for mobilization, you need another $9,000 if they demobilize. So there you got yourself covered.
Sure, but as we apply annexation fees, we have to make them comparable and not capricious. And so the 9 residential was built on this land, that is how much in annexation fees would. And it's we can't just make up numbers
Okay,
and say this
all
is
right.
what you will charge you.
Yeah. Any other questions from the public? Nope. All right, so we will not be voting on this tonight. Lots of good questions and feedback.
And we will provide more information about the fencing.
Fencing, sure, at the next full council meeting where this will be considered by all 14 elected officials. So just keep in mind, again, the state charges the counties with the permitting process, and at this point, counties have to approve them. The question that's before us is what can we put in place to help ensure that something is fairly and consistently built and maintained? So that's the reason for the $9,000. How that money gets escrowed or set aside is an operational question that can definitely be handled after this. The question before us is, do we want to create ordinances that help create some consistency and clarity with what we're trying to do with respect to solar farms? So, all right, so that was item 2.2. We are moving on to item 2.3, which is another text amendment. This would be for whether we want tobacco and vape shops to have to go through the planned use process, which they do not currently have to do. So Greg has more details on it.
Thank you. This is a proposed amendment to Section 157 of the City Code, which does provide regulations and compliance with planned use approvals. Before I get into that, I just want to provide a brief background information. In terms of past several years, the city has experienced an increase in business registration applications for tobacco and vape shops. By right, per our city code, tobacco and vape shops are currently permitted to establish business in the following 3 zoning districts: B1 Community Business District, B2 General Business District, and I Industrial Districts. At the present time, the city has 9 licensed tobacco and vape retailers. So when a new one does want to come in without this amendment, the only process that they must currently follow is fill out a business registration with the city of O'Fallon and get an occupancy inspection. And once that is completed, they're open. By right, they're permitted to operate their business. So with that said, we are looking to amend the planned use approval and add tobacco and vape shops to that process. The planned use process is a discretionary zoning tool to identify potential impacts which may not be fully addressed through the standard code requirements. This would require additional levels of review from the Planning Commission, from the Community Development Committee, and ultimately the City Council. Designating tobacco and vape shops as planned uses would ensure that each proposed business is subject to public and administrative scrutiny. And it would also allow the city to balance business development opportunities with the need to safeguard public health, safety, and welfare, as well as regard potential impacts for youth access and neighborhood character. And similar to other regulated uses such as drive-throughs, liquor stores, automobile services, these types of businesses warrant additional oversight to ensure that they are situated in appropriate locations and that they operate in a manner which is consistent with our master plan as well as the community's expectations. The proposed text would recommend that the tobacco and vape shop retailers be added to the list of uses requiring a planned use approval per section 157.115, planned use when required. And ultimately what that means is when a business owner comes to the city to open a new tobacco and vape shop, they would then be required to pull a planned use application and go through the PUD process to receive approval. Any of the existing 9 retailers that are currently in business would be grandfathered in. If that does change use, and then it eventually goes back to a tobacco and vape shop, they would then be required to go through the planned use process. And staff recommends approval of the zoning text amendment.
All righty, thank you. This is normally the part where I would ask for a motion and a second, but we do not have quorum, so instead I will ask, do any members of the committee have questions regarding this proposed zoning text amendment? Nope. Council members, questions? Public, any questions from the public? Nope, all right. Well, this will appear on the council agenda at our next meeting. And now we'll move on to item 2.4. Greg.
Thank you. This is a resolution that would ultimately go to City Council next week. And following our land control ordinance and subdivision, this is a minor subdivision of 1410 Frontage Road, and the subdivision is known as USI 64 subdivision on 7.08 acres. The property owner, Mr. Jim Blumeyer, is requesting approval of a proposed minor subdivision along 1410 Frontage Road. There is a current self-storage business located on that property. He is looking to split it into 2 different lots. The Lot 1, which contains the self-storage business, would exist as it does today. Lot 2, which would be on the west side of the property, the petitioner is looking to sell that in the future for a potential future business. Per our city code, minor subdivisions may be exempted from the procedures and requirements for preliminary plats, and the subdivider may move to the filing of the final plat for review. This final plat has been reviewed twice by city staff and ultimately is being recommended for approval by the Community Development Department and Public Works. Taking a look at the property, this is 1410 Frontage Road along Frontage Road and I-64. As you see, there is the current self-storage building located on the eastern part of the property. That would be essentially subdivided right down the middle, and the vacant western part of the property would be sold off by the property owner. This is what the proposed minor subdivision looks like. All of the easements and other compliance with our city code has been worked through, and this is the recommended approved minor subdivision plat. And ultimately, we recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I would normally ask for a motion and second. We do not have quorum, so instead I will ask, does anybody in the committee have questions about the proposed minor subdivision?
Curiosity, do we have any idea what they're thinking might go in there? I know it's early if they're going to sell it to somebody else, but have they mentioned anything?
He does not have anybody in mind or anybody that has expressed interest yet.
That we know. Questions from the council?
How many acres is this?
7 acres.
Can we stipulate what's added to this, what's put on this property, or this will be brought to us when she makes the development? In other words, we can approve or disapprove whatever she wants.
It would all depend on what type of use. So if it is a use that does fall within that planned use approval process, they would be required to go through that, and ultimately city council would approve. So you are,
Is this a business?
it is a commercial site, correct?
Commercial?
Yep.
So she can't build houses there?
No.
Yeah, right now it's zoned as B2, General Business District. Other questions from the council? Questions from the public? All right, we will not be voting on this, but instead we will see it on the next city council agenda. All right, so we are at the point in the meeting now. It looks like I think you have some updates for us.
Just to provide an update, at the first meeting of every month, we will do a department update. Looking at our activity from the last month in September, 99 building permits were issued. The construction value for those 99 permits is valued at $10.7 million. This does include 11 new multifamily units. There were 218 occupancy inspections. That does include re-inspections. There were 715 building inspections and 543 code enforcement actions have been administered. To bring those enforcement actions into compliance, it takes an average of 20.6 days to abate that problem. Would also like to provide an update on the shops at Pierce. As you may be aware, Meyer Stores Limited Partnership has submitted an application to amend the existing plan use, which was approved in June of 2023. The amended application is for a new site plan, which divides the property into 4 uses and an on-site detention pond. The uses are a proposed convenience store and fuel pumps, a drive-through coffee shop, drive-through fast food restaurant, and a medical office building. This was scheduled for a public hearing tomorrow, October 14th, at the Planning Commission. We're working with the petitioners to address their site layout and potential traffic impact. And ultimately, the petitioner does have the right to ask for a continuance, and so there will not be a public hearing held tomorrow, and it will be continued to December 9th, 2025, and we will have a public hearing at a Planning Commission meeting on that date. Would just like to make everyone aware that we did send out public notices to all properties that received the same notice back in 2023. We used the same addresses. And we did get out a notice of continuance to the post office on Friday. So hopefully those will be received by tomorrow. But information is out there that this will be continued to December 9th. The Building Code Review Committee held a meeting on September 23rd. The purpose of this meeting was to review proposed changes to the adopted code. The city currently has adopted code from the International Code Council from year 2018, and we are looking to adopt the 2021 code, which I would say a majority, 99% of all other municipalities that neighbor O'Fallon have adopted the 2021 code as well. This is currently being disseminated to city council members, and we will bring the building code ordinance to a future committee meeting. Just to provide an update, construction continues on the medical office building and surgery treatment center at HSHS. Home 2 Suites is continuing their construction. Spring Hill Suites at Greenmount Road and Highway 50 has received a footings and foundation permit. And Brandywine, the development on Lincoln Avenue, just pulled an additional 6 building permits as those buildings continue to get built. Staff recently completed plan reviews for Old Base Factory, so their construction plans have been reviewed, and U-Haul Moving and Storage Center, they did go through the approval process for the PUD, and we did approve their preliminary site plan, so they will come back with construction plans in the future. We have 2 upcoming meetings currently scheduled. First one is tomorrow, October 14th. Aloha Pools is requesting a planned use for an outdoor display located at 105 Auto Court. You may recall that pools did start showing up in the old Offenburg Auto Mall earlier this summer at 187 Auto Court. Since then, the petitioner has decided that he would like to move his business to 105 along Highway 50. And before any pools do get placed out there, we are requiring him to go through an outdoor display planned use amendment. Next, we have a meeting on October 28th at 6:00 p.m. This is also Planning Commission, and Club Fitness is requesting to amend their existing plan use. They currently have a variance to go over their additional sign allowance, and they would like to add another small sign, so they're asking for a variance for their signs, and that will come to the Planning Commission on October 28th. Both of these, after Planning Commission, will be brought to the Community Development Committee for discussion. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, it's my favorite part of the meeting. At this point, we have arrived at 4.1. We are opening, it's all right. Siri, man. Oh, now mine's going off. Good Lord. I got a new phone. I don't know how to work it. At this point, we'll open the floor to public comments. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make? Yes, sir.
Ron Zelms, Ward 6 again. I was a little disappointed there's not going to be a planning commission meeting tomorrow, but the good news, I think what I heard you say is you're working with them because maybe you don't like some of their layout at Meyer. The question I have is, you say letters were sent out the same as they were last time. The shops at Pierce, if you go within 250 feet, there are no residential properties. So are there any residential properties that were sent letters? And then my other comment would be, who picked the date of 9 December? Because if you look at that, that means Planning Commission, or I'm sorry, Community Development wouldn't get it until the 22nd of December. Guess how many committee meetings occur on the week of Christmas? In the last 10 years, none. Which puts then it off to Community Development until like the 11th of January, a whole month after the Planning Commission would have seen it. And I know there's, I look at the delay that occurs over the Christmas time frame and the community getting involved who live on Pierce, who may or may not be aware of a potential gas station going in there. And just think that maybe the 9th of December isn't all that great from a standpoint of community and residents. Thanks.
Thank you.
Carrie Schaefer, Ward 1. Question on the letters that were sent out. Obviously, I don't talk to everybody, but my understanding was that it was supposed to be that square that was covered by Greenmount, 50, Lincoln, and basically 64. I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people reached out to me and said they've not gotten anything. So just FYI, I don't know if that's the radius you were working from, but I've heard from about 10 to 15 people, and none of them have gotten anything. So just FYI.
Thank you. Other questions from the public? No? Do we want to speak to the radius or which residents received notices?
Yes, I'll address that. We pulled the Excel sheet from the process in 2023, and every address that received a letter in 2023 was mailed a certified letter making them aware of the public hearing held tomorrow, and all of those addresses received mailings. Those went to the post office on Friday that made them aware of the continuance to December 9th. Ultimately, December 9th was already a scheduled planning commission meeting. The developer has the right to request a continuance. December 9th was already scheduled as a meeting, so they will proceed with that date.
That date coincide because what they're having to do is they're having to look at the traffic impacts, and those usually take 30 to 45 days. So December was the next available chance they had to present this to the Planning Commission. Again, I assure you it was about a 5-minute conversation where we're like, well, when do you think you'll be ready? And they said December. There was no strategy behind their intention to go in December. As it was last time, and we've learned through Park Place, this will be a very open and transparent meeting. We'll discuss all the facts. We'll show the traffic impact, and at the end of the day, it'll be the decision of the City Council whether they like the change of use or not.
Gotcha, thank you. Do you have an estimate on approximately how many residential letters were mailed?
So I specifically did the ones on Friday myself, and there was about 50.
50,
Yeah.
okay. All right,
And all of those were residential homes.
okay.
And again, with post office, we understand there was a challenge. It may not get there till Tuesday, so I did send out that notice to many of our partners, including the council, asking them if they could help us get that word out.
Sure. So to clarify, there is a planning commission meeting tomorrow. There's only one agenda item now instead of two. So I don't want people to think there's no planning commission. There is planning commission. The Meyer project will not be discussed at that meeting. So, all right, seeing no other comments, we will adjourn the meeting.
No.
Oh, no,
if
I'm
we
sorry.
may, we have a few more items.
Psych.
A few more items to address tonight.
Sorry.
One is Jeff Taylor. These are kind of new things that he doesn't have a committee meeting, and Andrew's not here, so we're talking to the council tonight.
Sorry, not so quick here. But,
Trick or treat.
I wanted to make the council aware, I received a call last Friday from the highway commissioner with Caseyville Township. We'd spoke earlier in the year, and they were talking about potentially overlaying their portion of Old Collinsville Road, and I told them when they were to do that, to let us know. We'd want to potentially enter into an agreement similar to what we just did on Bowler Road with O'Fallon Township. So that was early in the year. We reached out this past Friday and said they've already bid it. They plan on starting and could begin as early as next week. So was able to get their bid tabulation, talk to the low bidder. They would be agreeable to honor the unit prices to allow us to do our portion of the road. And so when I'm talking about our portion of Old Collinsville, I'll pull up this map here real quick so you can see it. So we're talking about from the roundabout at Milburn School Road heading north. So this area that's hatched, that's to the east, that is the Augusta Green subdivision. So the way it works is whenever we annex adjacent to a township road, we take over maintenance responsibility of that road. So that happened back in 2005. Since then, we're the city, we've done no maintenance on that road. It's an old oil and chip road, hasn't been worked on in, the 20 years we've had it. So it is rated as poor off our pavement management program. It is in need of work. So what my recommendation would be is if this contractor is willing to honor the unit prices that they're entering into an agreement with the township, for our portion, we put together a contract, we enter into one directly with the contractor, separate from the township, and they perform the work at the same time. So the work would include a 2-inch overlay with asphalt, double yellow center lines, white edge lines, then an aggregate wedge on the side. So no curb and gutters, the ditches will still remain. But being as quick of a timing as this is, and the township wanting to have this done before the end of the year, the plan would be to finalize the cost, bring it forward as a resolution to next Monday's city council meeting. Initial estimates put it at roughly about 150,000. I think once we get into the quantities, will be more like 125,000. There is money within the current pavement management budget to handle that. So if we hear any objections, but that would be the intent right now, is to put that together and bring it forward as a resolution next Monday at council.
Okay. Are there any major objections to this going straight to the council Monday night?
I have no objection, but I just want it to ask, by doing this, it in the long run saves us money than doing it on our own. They'll already have the equipment out there and all the people and everything, so this is something that will potentially save us money.
It would. The
And it was gonna
township,
need to be done
their
anyway.
total project is close to $1 million, so they're doing not only on Collinsville Road, but additional roads to the north. So, yeah, like you mentioned, that equipment's gonna be there. They're honoring the same unit prices, so it would in long term save us money doing it now. Killian Corporation is the low bidder that the township's moving forward with. 2,300 feet in length. 2,340.
In 4.
sorry.
Wow. Wow.
And 12 and 8 inches.
So,
All right, so I don't see any
our
major,
section.
okay. All right, so we'll expect to see that on Monday's agenda then.
Okay. And the other thing to discuss tonight, not nearly as exciting, is road construction.
Whoa, 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 yes it is.
Okay. So with and I sent an email to the council earlier this morning, with the renovations at Community Park, there had been a lot of people reaching out to Andrew Dolner about a tree lighting ceremony that would coincide with the Illuminated Holiday Parade's ending. And for those that don't know, the Illuminated Holiday Parade is basically going in reverse this year. It is starting on 3rd Street, going up into downtown, turning south on Lincoln, turning east on 4th Street, and it'll end up right in front of the new Cabin Center. And so Andrew was asked by many members of the public to see what it would do, or what it would cost to put together a tree lighting ceremony. So he did receive quotes. The 26-foot tall artificial tree with lights is $21,000. It is not a budgeted item. And so At this point, staff would prepare for this to be in next year's budget unless the council fears overwhelmingly that they want this done this year, given the renovations of the community park. And if that is the case, it needs to go into the city council for a purchase contract resolution next Monday. So I'm here to take a straw poll. Is everybody yelling at us to get the tree, or were we okay holding off till next budget year?
Here's my straw poll.
Anybody else on the committee?
Wait, what is that? What is that?
That's this year.
Okay.
I feel like the Grinch now that is gonna steal
Let's hear
Christmas.
it.
Let's hear it. Now's the
Just
time.
my 2 cents on this, just because of different questions I've gotten for the downtown area, is to have a tree downtown to make it more incorporated with the downtown picture, people are already downtown. My fear is if it's out at the park, we'll have the tree lighting and then that's it for the season. It's a lot of money to have one night. If we had other activities out at the park throughout the season, I think I'd be more comfortable with any amount of money. But I just think for the walkability and the picture opportunities, a tree downtown and a lighting downtown makes more sense. But
That's a
my
solid point right there.
okay. That's
Well, if that's how the council feels, next year would give us more time to plan that.
And it
from
does
a
give us more
staff
time. I'm not trying to be the Grinch. I mean, I'm the Grinch of my family, but I mean, I don't want to be
we
the
just
city
don't wanna be
Grinch
yelled
and
at.
but I
Cole's
think
Grinch.
the possibility of having more activity and really highlighting it downtown would be better.
Maybe next year we can plan a little bit ahead to put a new tree at the park. Incorporate events to go with the new tree. That would be perfect.
Okay. Sounds to me like staff's onto something with waiting. And I'm not getting any
I s-
dirty looks, so.
There are things that require rushing. I don't think this is it. It'll
Oh.
be great in the long run, but yeah, kind of feeling like Grinch too.
Okay.
Spoken.
Well, that's good feedback.
That's good feedback. All right. I think that gives you some inkling of.
Well, this is a large tree. It's not necessarily one we can necessarily just put in a 5-gallon bucket and have it out there, so
Always get a bigger tree next year,
you got it.
if you really think about it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it's probably better to wait until we get some time to plan this.
Yes.
Well,
Sounds like it.
thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we don't have quorum to have a motion to adjourn, so I will just say good evening. Have a good night.